Well, like you like that better than spring, even though you like well water?
Oh, spring water's like my top.
Okay.
But I will say I don't usually get bottled water when I'm out and about. I usually have my water bottle with me. So when I do get bottled water, it usually is just whatever is available because I'm in a pinch, and it ends up being like Dasani or Aquafina, which I do not prefer.
Yeah, Dasani, like purified water, has a kind of taste with it that makes it something, like you know that there's something in it?
Yes.
You can tell that spring water is pure.
Yes.
And then purified. But then some people will drink it and say, like, there's no difference.
Yeah.
I think that they are, like, lying or whatever.
Not everybody is so attuned. I think my propensity to take a moment and taste the water diminishes significantly based on how thirsty I am. If I'm just really thirsty,
if your body wants it, that's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Purified water. What kind of music do you like?
I am big into pop, specifically like hyperpop, which is hyperpop. Yeah, it is a subgenre of pop music that specifically uses a lot of synthesizer and Y2K elements. So
it's more electronic.
Yep.
Okay.
So like Charlie XCX, her Brat album very much fits in the hyperpop genre.
Yeah, I really like that album. I want to say I love that album. I don't know.
But yeah.
Would you say you love it?
I did. It was my most listened to album of last year.
Okay.
Unapologetically. I think that was the most listened to album. And then I think it was out of my 5 top singles, 4 of them were from that album. But I really enjoy it. It scratches a certain part in my brain.
Yeah, do you like Chappell Roan?
Less so. Definitely. Just because the kinds of music that she makes doesn't rely on so much electronic production. But she's definitely talented. It's just not so much in my niche. Slater is one of my favorite artists. That's Slater with 3 Ys. I saw her in concert. I've only been to like 2 concerts, and she was one of them. She's great.
I don't know. I think I've heard of Slater. Have you heard of Slater Kinney?
Yes, I have. Different Slater.
Yeah. Do you listen to that? Have you seen Portlandia?
I have seen some episodes, but nothing comprehensive.
It wouldn't really be your thing.
Oh, okay.
Would it? Or
I don't know. I watched it in college with my friends, and I can see the appeal. I don't know if it was for me.
Sure.
Cringe comedy is sometimes kind of hard for me to watch.
Okay.
Just, I don't know.
So you'd call it cringe comedy, like what Fred Armisen does?
A little bit, yeah. Where the part of the joke is looking at people in their awkwardness.
Yeah.
And using that as a source of humor.
Okay.
And sometimes it can be a little painful.
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. That's your take on like Fred Armisen.
And he's very funny, and a lot of the writing.
So you
is
would
very
say
funny.
like you're not really a Fred Armisen fan.
I've liked
because you'd be like that's kind of cringe.
No, I don't think it's cringe in that I think it's bad, because I think a lot of people use cringe as a synonym for bad. I think it's the awkwardness of the humor is difficult for me to watch because I feel uncomfortable, because I feel bad. And it's not just Fred Armisen. It extends to a lot of projects. Like Frasier is one of my favorite sitcoms. Shout out Logan Steak if you're listening. But there are definitely moments in that show that are so painfully awkward because the characters are unaware of how poorly they're behaving.
Sure,
and you're supposed to empathize with them, that I have to pause it or like skip past it because it's difficult to watch.
Frasier is kind of in on the joke though.
Sometimes
I feel like.
Yeah.
Or he's like making fun of himself.
There are definitely moments that I think he's getting his comeuppance that's kind of painful to watch.
Yeah, so it's more like you think he learns his lesson rather than that he like is aware that he's learning a lesson. Okay.
And I definitely think an advantage of that is that it resets every episode. which is they don't learn and grow.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
That's one of the annoying things about TV.
Yes,
it's just like, oh, the new episode. Like, what about all that wacky stuff that happened like 2 weeks ago, and they're just like completely ignoring it.
But like Frasier learns a lesson every episode, whether it's that he needs to not be such an uptight snob or he's not mindful of other people's feelings, whatever. He learns that lesson every episode, and then it resets, versus something like Seinfeld, they never learn a lesson. So the fact that they stay the same makes sense.
It's more just like chaos with Seinfeld, or whatever, where they are, I guess they just kind of like ruthlessly don't care.
Yeah. Like same thing with Always Sunny. There's no learning. Those characters are bad people. They don't really learn lessons. So the fact that they behave the same every episode across seasons.
Yeah. Do you think that life is like that, where it resets, where like people forget all the stuff that you did? Because in some ways it is kind of like that. I mean, obviously it's not all the way like TV, because we all like have a history we like remember, or like relationships and stuff. But
I definitely have had people in my life that I feel like our relationships have been cyclical in that nature, and that's something that I'm trying to get away from. Where I don't know if you've ever had
all the relationships, they're stuck in that world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like
they can't
so
leave.
That's one way it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Where it's like The Office is unrealistic because in a real office there'd be a lot more turnover.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Wouldn't have that it's always that same group of people. So it's like it's kind of ridiculous in that sense, like the fictionalness of TV.
Oh yeah. And that's part of what makes it comforting if you're somebody that finds a lot of relaxation in knowing the beats.
Escapism.
Yeah. You're like, oh, of course, this is fictional. None of these people are real. No one actually gets hurt. And it resets at the end of every episode. It's
kind of like you can control it on your own. So
absolutely.
it's like a world that the viewer, get to control. Rather than in life, everybody's like they just make some decision and then they're gone or whatever. People are just unpredictable.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
There's beauty and pain in that, I think, as in all things. Just like sometimes they surprise you and it's pleasant. Sometimes they surprised you and you're like, I really should have seen that coming. That was...
Yeah. Some people are more predictable than others.
Oh, absolutely. Do you think that you're a predictable person?
I don't really know. I guess that's something that I was thinking about recently a little bit. Because in some senses I am predictable, or like I'm kind of basic. Not all the way, though. I'd say I'm probably like half and half.
Okay.
Predictable and not hopefully. I mean, but it might be the case like, hopefully it doesn't turn out that I was really predictable or whatever. But I don't think that I am, and that's not the message that I want to send into the world.
That's fair.
I want to carry on like I'm unpredictable. But it's like, if you say that, then it's like, you're sounding like a predictable person.
Yeah, it's what a predictable person would say, that I'm so cool and unpredictable and you can never guess my next move. And you're like, that tells me so much about you just in that little snippet. I can guarantee your next move.
Right, yeah. You don't want to get in that territory, like, just, I'm vulnerably unpredictable or whatever. Like, I guess it's a fine line, like, propagandizing yourself. And saying, like, I'm good, or, like, you should, like, saying all these positive things about yourself openly, but then, like, it's also not good because you want that to be, like, told to you, or, like, that would be more ideal, as if other people said all that good stuff about you. But you're supposed to be like, I'm selling myself, or whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely, I don't know if you find that difficult in comedy sometimes, that it feels inauthentic to pitch yourself.
Yeah, I think that I do, probably.
That's a challenge that I've had of wanting to, like, say, get on a specific show or take part in a specific opportunity. You're like, okay, well, me as a comedian, I am selling myself, the product, to this producer, this booker, so that I can get this opportunity. But that whole exchange feels deeply unsettling to me, and it's something that I struggle with, trying to find a balance between how am I advocating for myself and getting myself in the position to take opportunities that I am qualified for, versus just the innate like recoil of hating to do that at all times.
Networking feels kind of like sleazy.
It's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, I don't know how fake that I am supposed to be. Sometimes you're like, how much I'm supposed to lie, because it's probably you're supposed to lie or something like that. But the world prefers for you to be nice.
Yes.
Rather than mean. I feel like that's what we're all expected to carry on publicly as, is nice. But I think in real life you have to be like mean to get where you're going. I don't really know. What do you think is the place of niceness? Like that word, that idea. It's so broad that it's hard to pin down what we even talk about when we say nice.
I read an op-ed piece in college that said something to the effect, their thesis statement was essentially that nice is not a compliment. They were like, it's a platitude that you give people when they're agreeable. And it's not synonymous with kind, and it's not synonymous with enjoyable. That it's just simply you're agreeable, you're a very basic, acceptable version of yourself. And they were arguing that you shouldn't chase nice as a compliment. You should chase something more specific to exactly what you want. Do you want to be somebody that's fun to be around? Well, then that's what you actually want. You don't want to be nice. You want to be somebody that is the life of the party. Or do you want to be somebody that is really kind and altruistic? Then that's actually what you want to chase. You don't want people to describe you as nice. You want people to describe you as somebody that's a very caring individual, that's very selfless. And that definitely changed my opinion on using that as a compliment for people, because I have found that when I usually identify people as nice, it's because I don't know anything specific about them.
Yeah, okay.
Like I see somebody at a party and you're like, oh, what do you think of so-and-so? And I'm like, they seem nice, because I actually know nothing about them.
It's a really default word.
Yeah.
Like thing that you can fall back on. I like how it's like, I think it's really popular, and that in public life, like if you're going out and doing stand-up and you want to be in the public more, like you have to be nice on stage, especially. I feel like, even though a lot of comedians will like go after the crowd and whatever. Would that be like? Do you think that is considered mean? The way that a comedian might, even if they aren't heckled, they just like start going after the crowd and saying like, "Oh, you suck and you're fat and whatever." I definitely.
I mean, those specific examples. If I was an audience member, I would be very off-put.
Yeah, I think, like I've seen it.
Well, one could argue that that's not very good at the craft, but
yeah,
I am no.
That's wrong.
I'm no arbiter of taste, but I will say I think being antagonistic on stage, I think you have to establish two things. I think you have to establish the rules of the room, if you want to call it that. Like, hey, was the host going up with like a antagonistic kind of I'm trying to rile you up energy? Was that the energy of the show from the beginning, and you're just kind of riding that wave as the audience into it? Are they like hooping and hollering and they seem to be laughing and having a good time? Okay, so you know what the rules of the room are. If you come out swinging with no warning, that won't go well. And then two, you need to establish that you are likable already. Like,
oh, okay.
I think sometimes I see comics go on stage and just, they've been up there for 30 seconds and they're immediately saying things like you said, like, you're fat and you're stupid and what's the deal with your face? And like, you haven't given them a chance to know you. And like, maybe start with some self-depreciating jokes, maybe some just more neutral but funny observations. Give them something that they like you first, because the audience paid for the show. They're rooting for you. They want you to be funny. They want you to do well because they paid money to see you.
Yeah.
So get them to like you, and then you can be a little bit more of an ass if you want to use that as a way to generate laughs.
I like how you're saying, like, go up, sort of creating an air of likability.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I am likable, or whatever.
Yeah. Like, that's part of the reason, I'll say. I think there's 2 reasons why Anthony Jeselnik gets away with some of the really dark, edgy humor that he does, and why he has cultivated such a specific fan base is, A, he's a phenomenal joke writer. Like, as far as comics working today, very few have just set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. Since we've switched to more narrative comedy. So he stands out in that regard. He's a very good joke writer. And then 2 is he establishes that he's in on the joke, that he's playing this character of an aloof asshole, but he's actually not. Because off stage, he doesn't behave that way.
Yeah.
So I think that is part of what works, because if he went up and he was always that way all the time, I don't think people would like him as much, because they're like, I mean, his jokes are funny, but he's an ass.
It's better to be different off stage than on stage.
When you're being a character that is rude and belligerent. Don't be rude and belligerent off stage, because then no one likes those people. I don't want to pay money to see that person.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like with niceness, people will hold each other to it. Mm-hmm. Like, people will say, like, they'll go out drinking and they'll be like, I had this nice hangover the next day. Mm-hmm. They like say it sarcastically, because people were like expecting them to do something nice the next day. But people be like, I had this nice hangover I had to deal with. Mm-hmm. Where they like use it sarcastically. Mm-hmm. And like, so they were doing something that sucked rather than like they were doing something nice the next day. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's interesting that that's like, I feel like that's what we're supposed to communicate to each other. Like, we're doing something nice, but being mean is more like, has more emotion, or
it's definitely heightened. I think there's a reason that certain comics have cultivated a very angry persona on stage that's very high energy, because it's very emotional. Like, why is it that when you get to a certain point, even somebody who's very like neutral, very calm, like, have you seen Ali Wong's like any of her specials?
I may have seen half of one.
Okay. The way that she has her cadence, she's kind of like, I talk like this, it's very neutral, and now I'm getting agitated, and now I'm talking like this, and now I'm really mad, and then I'm ending the punchline like this. And but then after she hits that punchline, she then comes back down. She's like, and now I'm talking like this again. And so she uses anger as a way to punctuate her jokes. Sam Kinison is a historical example of someone that would just scream to really elevate the comedic impact of what they were saying.
I know, yeah. And he, like, I don't know that he was angry necessarily.
But he just gave that energy, because it has it elicits a very emotional response from an audience.
We haven't seen someone like Kinison, I don't think, since that will yell. Yeah. Whatever.
But even from like the spectrum of like an Ali Wong that uses it very meticulously to Sam Kinison that's just like off the rails. Yeah. Anger is an emotion that's used. I mean, I think Bill Burr is somewhere in the middle of that. He's not screaming all the time, but
he's really sarcastic.
He's really sarcastic. Like, he gets loud. He yells sometimes to emphasize the point.
Yeah. People really like that, I feel like, when they are not able to get angry themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a vicarious experience. I wish I could go up there and scream about how kids these days are on their phones too much. But when I do it, none of my family talks to me.
Oh, do you wish that you could more? Or like,
no, I'm just making up a straw man audience member that's going to a Bill Burr show and just being like, man, I wish I could do that.
Do you want to be angrier on stage?
I don't know if I necessarily do. But maybe
you could.
Maybe I could.
You could get there.
Someone recently told me that they liked a bit that I did months ago at the beginning of the year when I just had a bad day and I went up and I said something to the effect of, I'm tired of always being the bigger person. I want to be an asshole. Like, I don't know how to do that, but I would like to figure it out because it seems like a lot of fun. And they told me that I should go back and explore that. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it just came from a very raw emotional place and that was resonant.
Yeah, go and discover that part of yourself and find it.
I'm gonna go out on a rampage terrorizing the Columbus comedy community, and they were like,
right, yeah.
Who told her that she should do that? She's a menace.
Yeah, well, it's like you get enough opportunities for stand-up just because there's so many mics that you could technically just like practice that persona of somebody who's angry like a quarter of the time or something. True. But it's hard to do that because like it would be hard for me to switch something like too much because I would think about like people know that I was already this way.
Yeah. You just have to go.
People don't allow for schizophrenia. Yeah. Like enough. They don't let you be different personalities.
You should drive to like Cleveland or Cincinnati and just somewhere you've not performed and just be angry and belligerent and just have a completely different comic persona and see how that goes. And then if you're like, all right, well, like, I guess I just can't perform in my hometown.
I'm angry in Cincinnati. I'm like an angry guy.
You're just you in Columbus.
Right. In Columbus, I feel like I should be more neutral.
Mm-hmm. It's home turf.
Yeah. It seems like a neutral kind of city. Mm-hmm. And it guides me to more neutrality, maybe. I don't know. Or that could just be me. I don't know if it's the city, but I feel like the city is neutral, and maybe I'm also neutral.
Columbus is... It doesn't really ever feel to me to have its own kind of culture in a way that I feel like other cities in Ohio have history. Like Cincinnati has really old bones. It has architecture, a lot of history, a lot of different things.
It's got kind of more of like a stigma, Cincinnati. Or it's got more of like a identity.
Yeah. I think same thing with Cleveland. It's just been around longer. Like I always tell people, I know people that are like born and raised Clevelanders for like 5 generations. Same thing with Cincinnati. In Columbus, a lot of people aren't from Columbus, and if you are from Columbus, your parents probably aren't, and nobody's grandparents are from Columbus. Like no one has just been around here that long. Like you look at a lot of the housing, and it was built in the 1940s during World War II. Like there's just not a lot of roots here.
So there's like a lot of turnover in Columbus.
Absolutely. Like being the state capital and having the university elicits a lot of people to come in, stay for some time, and then leave.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people going in and out. I feel like that's a good quality for like entertainment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you just were working to have shows where the target demographic is college students, every year you're going to have new people to pull from. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, maybe I'm not predictable. I might be predictable. I feel like I'm more neutral. Would be a more accurate way of describing it.
Okay.
It's like even if I was predictable, I think that there's probably a more accurate word that would be like, no, he's actually like that or whatever. But I guess I'm kind of neutral. Do you think that you're predictable?
I think in some degrees, yes. I think any predictability that I have is patterns that I've entrenched in myself to make my life easier, simpler. I've had a lot of chaos and tumultuousness in my life, I'd say like before the age of 25. And so certain things, certain patterns, certain habits that I've kept from that time definitely no longer serve me. I'm trying to break them. But yeah, I've definitely noticed old patterns, kind of like what I was talking about with cyclical friendships and trying to get away from that. I've definitely had friendships in the past that don't make me happy, feel very unfulfilling. I don't really know why I'm still friends with that person. They don't seem to like to be friends with me. I'm like, why do I keep doing this? Habit, comfort, predictability.
Yeah. Certainty, you don't want to upset them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel that way about lots of people.
And then shared history. Classic example of sunk cost fallacy of I've put a lot of time and energy into this relationship. Why stop now? But the answer sometimes is simply, well, it's not serving either of you. And it seems like it hasn't been for a while, so we just let that go.
Yeah, it sounds like you prefer rootlessness, maybe.
I have some relationships in my life that are very strong, that I've worked hard to cultivate. But I think, and in my mind, the idea of like, you have to have a lot of friendships, and they all have to be the same level of closeness, and they all have to be in this shared group of people. And the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, okay with the idea of I have a couple really good friends that we share this experience, like we do comedy together, or we work together, or we have a similar hobby. Yeah. And being okay to like fragment my friendships. Yeah. And also being okay that not everybody is a super, super close friend. That it's okay, and there's still a lot of value in more casual friendships, more acquaintanceships, that's okay to maintain those in your life. I used to think that everything had to be the same level of depth, and I no longer believe that to be true. Okay.
So you used to have like the same level of friendships with everyone.
Yes, that I was like, this person is my best friend, this person is my best friend, like these five of us, like we are like best friends. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's okay if somebody is your best friend and they're not, and you're not their best friend. Yeah. That is normal, and that's a very human thing.
I feel like I am always trying to make friends with people that are like above my grade of friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like I aspire to be friends with the people like, oh, those are the people I want to be friends with or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that like I could be easily friends with, and it's like easier for me to ignore them. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's like a competitive sort of mindset that I'm looking at. Yeah. But like I mean, it probably doesn't end up working out that way. Like I make friends with people that are like me in like a deep enough way. I think that's generally how it works. Is like you are so similar in like a sort of deep way that it's like you'd gravitate towards these people. That's like how it ends up working generally. Yeah. Or like that maybe is a way that I used to go about it. Is like, oh, I aspire to be friends with them, or like I was valuing friendship maybe too much. There's like the word or the idea is like I need to have friends. That's how I felt when I was growing up. Was like I've got to have a best friend, or something like that. Or it's like that would be fun or cool to have that. Yeah. And that must be like maybe more childish thing to think, but. It's like you can get identified to groups of friends, and that I feel like that is not a good thing. It's like if you get too identified to friends, I think that you want to keep making more of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can do that, and it's like
and some friends are only in your life for a certain amount of time, and that's okay. Like there's nobody that I still talk to from high school, and I had that realization. And I had a moment of grief of I'm like, oh, that makes me sad. But also, we've grown apart. I don't see that person anymore. We haven't talked in years. I wish them nothing but the best. But like, I would no longer consider them to be my friend. And that's okay.
Yeah, you don't have to call them up and be like, hey, we're not
friends. No.
We reached that point where I would say we are no longer friends.
I always like, I've casually called it like the moving test. Like, okay, who are the people in my life that I would ask me to move? Or that if they asked me to help them move, I would do that. And it's a very small list of people. Those are people that I consider to be my very good friends.
Uh-huh.
People beyond that, like, I would be like, hey, you know, we're celebrating my birthday at this bar. Come by. That's like another ring of friends. Mm-hmm. And then people that...
Your birthday friends.
Yeah, birthday friends. And then, you know, people that I will talk to and catch up when I see them at a mic or I see them at the grocery store or whatever. That's like another ring of friends.
Yeah.
And like, it's okay that not everybody is the closest friend to me all the time, like my ride or dies. That's fine, because I'm sure that I fit in those circles in other friends. There are people that I have in my life that I'm sure I'm on that third outer ring of friendship. Mm-hmm. And I see them out, like, you know, on their socials, spending time with their inner friend group. And that's something that I've worked very hard to not let that hurt me. Be like, it's okay that you're not spending time at the same level with everybody all the time. That's okay. That's normal.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Also, we're all really fucking busy with jobs and life. And there are people I know that are getting married and having kids. And
yeah. There's so many reasons why somebody wouldn't end up doing something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you used to have like a more socialistic view of it, where you're like, we all treat each other equally.
Yeah, that we all are the same level of importance all the time.
Like you and all of your friends, would you say that you felt that way, like your friend group in comparison to somebody else's friend group?
Kind of. That I used to definitely be like, well, we're...
Like even someone else's friend group is like at the same level as your friend group?
Yeah, but it's just like islands of like...
Yeah.
Like, we're this group, we do everything together.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely how I felt in high school and college.
Did you have any resentment for other people's groups of friends? Like, oh, they're lame.
Not usually that they were lame. If anything, I was more envious of like, oh, like, that group of people, they seem to be having a lot of fun. Like, how would I be friends
You didn't feel like I'm better than them.
No.
You felt like...
Just more like...
You just kind of want to be friends with everyone.
Yeah, kind of. And I was like, well, what's going on there? But in my mind, I had this binary of, you're either friends with this person or you're not. And that's not... the older I've gotten, the less useful that binary has been. It feels very childish. Like, that made sense in first grade. When you're like, oh, I have 30 kids in my class. These are my friends. These are not my friends. And now, the older I've gotten, I'm like, life is a lot more complex than that. I would say that these 4 people are my very, very best friends.
Yeah.
These 20 people are really good friends. And then these, I don't know, 75 people that I interact with on some kind of level, I am friendly with, but I would not expect them to, I don't know, invite me to their wedding. I'd be like, oh, I want to know about it on social media. Like, congrats. Have a good day.
Yeah.
I don't expect to be invited.
Yeah, I like getting invited to a wedding. Even if it's somebody I'm not that good of friends with, I'm like hoping that they will a little bit. I'm like, oh, that means that I was important enough to them, you know. Whatever.
You can put an advert on Facebook about like, hey, do you have an uneven number of wedding guests?
Yeah.
Happy to balance out those tables. I'm a guy.
You could invite to your wedding.
I'm a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What would you put on your resume?
One more person?
What would you put on your invite me to your wedding resume? Of like, what are your qualifications?
Like I'll dance if I'll dance on the dance floor but I won't be like the first one. But I'm not gonna put that on there.
Okay.
They might think that I start it.
Okay.
If I just like, I'll dance and participate.
Okay.
I will. I mean, I like to like drink at a wedding if it's that. I don't know. I don't know what else
I will compliment the entree. I will.
Yeah, I'll be positive.
I'll be positive.
Bring me along. I feel like it's like it's kind of a societal thing that's put on friendship, or just the idea where it's like you should have friends or whatever, but it's kind of relative, like you're describing. Whatever a friendship is, I feel like there actually aren't really lines drawn out for it. But sometimes people get into this territory of like, it becomes like a contract because we're like friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that I think that it's more like relative. Like, you don't have to call me your friend in reality, but I don't know if it should be like that. It's kind of hard to define what a friend is.
I will say that when people have told me, like, well, of course, you're one of my friends, to have somebody say that I'm their friend makes me feel good. I'm not gonna lie. It's nice to have that label added to it. Yeah. But I think you're right that there's, since we're making these fully arbitrary metrics of closeness of friends, like the inner and outer circles of it.
Some people ruin it. They're just like, you're my friend, you know. They're like, well, Facebook kind of ruins it. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, I have 500 friends.
We have this now designation of it where it like...
I guess like social media will water down the term a little bit.
Also, I don't know if you have found this to be true. Are you born and raised in the Midwest?
Yep.
Where you'll be telling a story about somebody that you know, and you'll just like, oh yeah, no, like, I saw my friend the other day, and you're like, were they your friend, or are they just someone that you went to high school with that you ran into? Because I've caught myself using that language of friend as shorthand for someone I know.
Like, conscious of it. You'd be like, I shouldn't say this person is my friend necessarily. Like, when I'm talking about it, just that you're conscious about it, I think shows that you respect your friends.
Certainly try to.
Because there's a lot of people, I think, that wouldn't think about it. They're just like, my friend.
I caught myself doing it multiple times to a point that I had a moment of self-reflection. I'm like, why am I calling them that? No, it's just a person I know. Or like, say, I'm telling this story to my partner. Well, why would I not just give the context of, oh, I was at the grocery store and I ran into one of my mom's old students. That person's not my friend, but they're my mom's old student because my mom was a teacher. That's how I know them. Like, by calling them a friend, first of all, it wasn't really true. They weren't really a friend. They're just somebody I know. And secondly, I'm now omitting information from that story that actually makes it a little bit more clear. Because the follow-up question, I'm telling the story about somebody that I met in the grocery store. My partner is going to be like, oh, how do you know them? Well, I could have just started with that and said that in a little clause about the person that I'm describing, and then we've answered all of the questions. So, but it's a very Midwestern thing to do, to be like, my friend, my buddy.
Oh, okay.
Like, just describing somebody that you know.
Yeah. Are you from Ohio? Mm-hmm. Okay. What city in Ohio?
I'm from down near Athens, like Hocking Hills area.
What do you think about Ohio University?
Neutral.
You like don't really, you're like whatever.
A lot of kids that I went to school with ended up going there because it's the big state university that's closest to where we all grew up. But like, I don't have much connection to it.
I've only been to Athens one time.
Athens is a cool little town. It's like this weird intersection of like college
it seems like a little
crunchy,
hipster.
like crunchy hippies, and then like hill Appalachian culture, and you're like, this is very interesting.
It seems kind of, just in comparison to Ohio State, that it's like alternative and sort of hipster. Mm-hmm. But it seems a little elite. Maybe to me, I don't know. I've only been there one time. That was my impression. Is like, oh, this is like a nice university. Like they manicure the whatever trees around. Maybe I actually didn't see any of it, but what I did see was they had a big bus for like one of their like a hockey team or something, and they had all this like big mural of the way that the city looked on the side. Yeah, and they made it look like it was Harvard or something.
Yeah. No, it's a nice state. I think it's the second largest school in the state after OSU, I think is OU. So like, it's just this big college. I think I was reading one time, because I was interested, like the population of Athens, 2/3 of it are tied to the university, whether that's purely students or people that just live on campus during the school year for work. So when you're there during the summer, the population of the city decreases by like 65% or something wild.
Okay.
And that's kind of hard to wrap my head around. I'm just imagining like if Columbus lost 65% of their population for 3 to 4 months out of the year, that would be chaos. But it's just this small college town, so it's just embedded into it.
It's interesting the way that Columbus integrates the university, but then there's the other part that it's like the people who just live here.
Yep.
But there's so many of those, which makes it like different from a place like Athens, that they have to develop their own culture outside of the university, but they're like not allowed. It's I don't know if they're not allowed to have like an NFL team or whatever, but it's maybe harder because of the Buckeyes.
Yep.
But they just have like the NHL team, and the city really embraces the people that don't associate with the university or whatever.
Yeah.
They like really embrace the Blue Jackets.
Are you a hockey person?
Not really. I don't know. I'm a geography person.
Oh, okay.
I like geography, so I like to talk about cities.
Yeah.
So you like pop music, just like stuff that's current.
A lot more like the electronic.
Do you know Tame Impala?
Yeah, I do know Tame Impala, and I know it's one person.
It's more than one, but I mean,
Yeah.
The internet has gotten to the bottom of it.
Yes.
They're like, actually, it's just him, but it's a front. It's like a front for. But I feel like a lot of bands are kind of like that, and they've been like that through the decades. But the ones from like the 70s, nobody like got to the bottom of like, actually this guy does all the songs. I don't know what percentage of bands work like that, but there's a bunch of them that are like, it was kind of one person, but you get like Queen, and they all wrote songs. All the members of Queen wrote songs, so that's different. And like the Beatles, it was like two of them. It was like McCartney and Lennon.
Yeah, basically. And then
wrote them.
Ringo had 2, and then George Harrison was like, I want to write more songs, and they're like, shut up. You get 1. You get My Guitar Gently Weeps, and everyone's like damn, that song's a banger.
George Harrison.
Yeah.
We need one of the Beatles to be like forgettable.
Yeah.
I guess that's why he died early.
Have you
as early as he could anyway. Lennon beat him to it, but
have you seen any of Ringo's art online? He does like, oh my gosh, he does like Microsoft Paint art. It's, sorry to the viewers at home, it's bad. It's like not good. I think it's purposefully bad, but like you'll have to look it up.
Maybe I could find some and put it up for that.
Yeah,
when you say that.
It's certainly something. But
what does he like? What kind?
It'll just be like a really weird face in like very saturated colors, and it's pixelated.
He does like graphic design.
Yeah, basically.
Online.
But they're paintings that he'll sell for millions of dollars because it's Ringo Starr's art. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And people are like, oh, I want a piece of a Beatle.
Just like as long as he's alive, he's just making money.
Yep.
Everything he touches turns to gold as long as he stays alive.
Yeah.
Because he's got the Ringo Starr name.
Basically. And then you have McCartney out there just cranking out albums that most people haven't listened to since he left Wings. But he just keeps making music, which honestly, he's done that since he was in his teens. So I imagine that's all he knows.
No other way.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to do anything else but make music.
Yeah. He's like somebody in prison. He's like institutionalized to
music production.
Yeah. I wonder how many he's made and who's like the most prolific artist of all the famous ones. Because I was looking up Willie Nelson recently, and he's made like 78 studio albums or something like that. I had no idea, and I was like, I wonder how anyone would even go about starting to listen to that if they've never listened to Willie Nelson. It's like overwhelming.
I think McCartney's discography is like somewhere between 10 and 20, because he had
just like on his own. He's maybe done 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think...
So he'll do it every, like, 3 years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of par for the course. And I think in the 80s...
It's more than most people.
Yeah. And I think it's since been stretched out in, like, the 2000s, just because he's getting older. But I think in the 80s it was very, very reoccurring, because he was in the Beatles, and then he was in Wings, and then he had his solo musical career. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, but man's made a lot of music.
He's doing pretty well.
Yep, keeping busy.
Yeah, I've maybe listened to a couple of things that he's made recently. Mm-hmm. It'll, like, show up somewhere, or, like, he'll do a performance at the Grammys. He's like, this is my new song, or something, and we're all like, all right.
Oh, cool.
How do we take in what McCartney is doing now? It's like, he could be making amazing music right now, but everyone would be like, well, you're just making it to make it. Or something.
Yeah, and also, being a part of the Beatles, being arguably the front man of the Beatles, is going to be an impossible standard to meet anybody. Like, even Paul McCartney can't meet that standard of Paul McCartney. Yeah, he can't beat Paul McCartney of the Beatles, because everybody is going to just want more of what that was. Mm-hmm. And it was partly Paul, but it was also the chemistry of all four of them, and you can't replicate that. He's just doing his own thing now.
Yeah, people are like, we've identified you to the past, or to, like, the 60s and 70s. They're like, the old you is who you are. And
I also think that some of the straight Paul songs got kind of panned, and so I imagine that some people who are mostly familiar with the Beatles will be like, oh, the guy that wrote Maxwell's Silver Hammer is doing his own solo album? Ugh. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I want that. Even though, he has...
Even though it's Paul McCartney.
It's Paul McCartney, yeah. To be Paul McCartney is a level of fame I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Like, there's famous people, but then that's another level above... Yeah.
I wonder how he deals with that, or if he has gotten over, like, thinking of it that way. Mm. I guess he probably must have gotten so used to it.
Mm-hmm. Sir Paul McCartney, too. He's been knighted.
Yeah, it's interesting just that he's the person he was in the past. Maybe it would take some time. Mm-hmm. Like, given enough time, we might be like, the stuff that he was making in the 2010s was really good, or, like, that might take on a life of its own if we gave it, like, 30 or 40 years, or, like, after he's dead or whatever. But it's just because we've identified him to the 60s and 70s so much, it's hard for us to be like, no, you're current now, but maybe in the future.
Yeah.
What's your favorite song off of Brat?
Ooh, Sympathy is a Knife.
Okay.
Yeah. I really like the composition of it, and then also it's, for being like a party song, it's very vulnerable. The lyrics talking about this deep insecurity that you have from somebody that isn't trying to make you feel insecure, but you still feel that way regardless, because I've definitely felt that way before about somebody that's just living their life, and they're not being purposefully hurtful to me, but still, every time I come across them, I'm like, I'll never measure up to you.
Yeah, she wrote a lot of really good lyrics in that album.
Yeah.
It's one of the best lyrical albums I've heard, really, in a while.
Yeah. I was very impressed. And I've been a Charli XCX fan for several years, so it was awesome to see her kind of break into the mainstream.
Yeah. I know. I wonder how you make as many albums as she has, and then you still have enough left in the tank to, like, make a better album than everything, or arguably better than all the ones she ever made. Like, lyrically, to have all that to talk about. Like, she must have hit some... because that can only happen to you, like, as it comes to you.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know that she's about to make her best album or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, like, most liked. But she must have hit some stride, or it's just, like, the right time in history, like 2023, 24 was, like, she's really in her element or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's fortunately or unfortunately, I think a bigger part of music, and I would agree to an extent, just performing arts, including comedy as well, is that synthesis of right time, right place, luck, basically. Like, obviously, Charli XCX has a lot of talent. She's been doing it a very long time, so she has a lot of skill. She has a very large discography. She has a lot of history. You know, great performer, great voice. And by voice, I mean like just a very clear POV in the way that she writes and the way that she produces.
Yeah.
But all of that is still not enough. You had to have that little bit of luck that pushed her into virality. Like, 5 years ago, there was no way that she would be hosting SNL because no one would know who she was. It was like if you had Troye Sivan host SNL. No one... It's just women that like hyper pop and gay men. Like, there's no one else that's listening to Troye Sivan. But yeah, she broke into the mainstream, and I think a lot about groups like the Beatles. Like, if you had the same people supplanted into like 1995, would they have gone as far? Or was it just like they were exactly what people wanted in the 1960s? Like, four British men.
Did it have to do with their personalities? Or was it just we hadn't seen anything like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you listening to like right now?
I'm trying to think what I've been listening to on my YouTube queue. I'll every couple months go through a period where I just want to listen to a lot of like 2010s throwbacks, like stuff that was popular when I was in middle school or high school.
Yeah.
Just for the nostalgia. So
yeah, I'll do that too.
Yeah, so that's been...
I was listening to My Chemical Romance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just hits. For
I've
me...
never heard that album of theirs that was like their most popular one with Helena and Ghost of You.
Oh, yeah.
I've never listened to that whole album. It's pretty good.
Okay. Do you listen to it all the way through and you're like, yeah, I get it?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to go and listen to the whole thing, see if like are all the songs as good as the ones, you know? Like, that's one that eludes me, or that I wouldn't think of in that era, you know? Because you just think of like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco first.
Are you somebody that listens to albums all the way through?
Yep.
Okay. As am I. Like, at least the first listen, I'll just start to finish.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to hear all of them, and you get to hear ones that people are overlooking. Or, like, a lot of people wouldn't do that, so they're, like, missing out on a lot of songs that are good. Do you, like, conspiracy theories?
Depends on the degree, the impact of that conspiracy.
Do you like to talk about, like, philosophical things at all, or are you like, all of that is nonsense, I don't want to deal with that?
I think sometimes it depends on the attitude that you're going in with. Like, are we going into a discussion on a conspiracy theory with the understanding that this is more of a thought experiment and we're just wondering why, you know, what if? Or am I going into this conversation with somebody who is ardently trying to convince me that birds aren't real? Well, the latter doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But
okay, yeah.
The former, yeah.
So a conspiracy isn't fun to you if people are like taking it seriously?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. I tend to like take them seriously.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes.
I guess, what is your most ardent conspiracy theory that you hold?
I think it happens to be that like referees and broadcasters are on the same team. People who like broadcast a basketball game are on the same side as the referees in some capacity, like that they're connected, and there's like this whole deal with the way that they're narrating the game for the audience, and that it changes the outcome of the game.
Okay.
Because I would say that one because people don't believe in that now. There's like some conspiracies that have been unearthed where like a lot of people are on board with that.
Okay.
It's just I watch a lot of sports and I have like hatred for the referees.
Okay. And I found a conspiracy theory that perfectly aligns with something that I've always hated.
Yeah, and it's like the way that I hate them is the same way I've always hated like CNN for like you guys say the same rhetoric as like MSNBC or whatever.
Okay.
And like it feels the same to me the way that I'm like don't people want to point out that I don't know. That's like the one I'd be most ardent or like willing to talk about because there's other conspiracies that maybe wouldn't be as easy to explain. Like I think that ghosts are real.
Okay. Why do you think ghosts are real? That's something that I find myself on both sides of.
I think they're real because like we have that word and whatever it is that everybody is saying that's a ghost. We are assigning some activity to the word ghost, and we have the word. So, like, there's all kinds of things that fall in that category. Ghost. We came up with the word to describe that because we needed it. Like, it's a useful tool, the word ghost. And a lot of people have stories that are like, I saw a ghost or something like that. I think that there's too many testimonies of people seeing ghosts. I mean, I have testimonies, sort of stuff like that, and...
What are your ghost experiences?
Well, one time...
Because I have a couple, which is part of why I flip-flop between, like, the part of my brain that's like, no, that's auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, that's not real, and the other part of me being, I don't know, man. I was kind of sketched. So...
Yeah, well, one time me and my friend were in college, in the house we lived in college. We were, like, just talking about ghosts or whatever. We were talking about, like, demons. And I was like... Do you believe in demons?
Demons.
Demonic activity. This is like a Christian college.
Okay.
So
you went to Cedarville?
Cedarville University,
okay.
Yeah. So we might just spark a conversation about angels and demons.
No, that's part of the course.
Given the context, yeah. And we were just like talking about that, and I asked him, do you believe in demons, or like is that a bad thing or something about that? And he was like, yeah, but I don't like to talk about it because I feel like talking about it brings more of that activity in your direction or whatever.
Yeah.
And the second that he said that, we heard something like in the other part of our house, like as somebody walking, because it was that kind of house where you could hear as if somebody was walking around over there, the other part of the house. And it sounded like somebody walked from one of the rooms into the kitchen, and then some of the dishes crashed. And then we went over there to investigate, and our other two roommates were just like sleeping. And so that was something that happened in a weird, unexplainable thing.
Yeah. Do you have any other
That's
stories?
the main one.
That's the main one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might have some like peripherally sort of ghost stuff that's happened. Well, actually, one time in the first apartment I lived in when I moved to Columbus, the TV turned on when I went to sleep.
Oh, that's odd.
And I knew that it was off. But like, I ran into a couple things just in that apartment where it was like the lights turned on when I knew that they were off. But
yeah,
that's not as good of a story because
that's fair.
Anybody could explain like, no, it was on and you forgot.
I know. Simple.
Yeah.
I stayed the night, what was it, maybe like high school age, at an old lodge in a state park. And I remember being woken up by like the sounds of like children kind of like running and like laughing, like playing in the hallway. It was at 2 a.m. and I got up and I like looked out and there's no one in the hallway. And like I got up like very quickly, looked both sides, no one. And then I went back to bed and then it happened again. Where it sounded like they were bouncing the ball in the hallway and then like laughing and playing, and then I got up, no one was there, and I was like, okay, this is really creeping me out, and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Because I would just intermittently hear children running up and down the hallways and playing in the middle of the night.
Wow. I feel like there's lots of people have some sort of story, but there's ones that are like certain places that are really haunted, where people like definitely have stories. I think that you can't ignore the way that you're able to materialize, like make money off of certain places. Like, whatever, there's that house in Iowa where they, like, some person killed a bunch of people in the family or whatever, and this is, like, one of the places that ghost investigators go to. Like, the places that are famous for being haunted, there's something to that there's places that are more haunted than other places, like, definably, like, we can tell.
Yeah.
Because people will go there and then they will record all this ghostly activity that you can find there that you can't find in another place. That there's relatively more ghostly places, and we know what they are, whatever. I just want to know. I feel like there's more to it, and it's something that we don't understand, and that in the future we might be able to talk to ghosts and know where they're coming from, because it's just something that we're disconnected from whatever that thing is. I think that you can talk to whatever that is. We're just too dumb as humanity. I think it's something in the future that we don't. I think it's like God or whatever. Something that we don't know about yet. We can uncover, and we can uncover more of it. I think also that we'll get better at talking to animals.
Okay.
In a similar light. Ghosts are kind of like animals.
Interesting. Something that's not human but simultaneously is a part.
Like relatively human.
That would be interesting. I once heard somebody posit that ghostly activity is just existence in another dimension, because there's the idea that the universes are somewhat stackable and there's additional dimensions beyond what we can see in front of us. Like, obviously we're in a 3D environment, but there are theoretically like 40, 5D, 60, all of these additional dimensions apart from us, and that is what's causing this activity, is somebody existing in another dimension that somehow intersects with ours. Because if you're in a 4D space, 3 of those dimensions are the ones that we are currently existing in. You are merely existing in a 4th additional dimension. And I was like, okay. I mean, I don't know enough mathematical proofs to dispute that. And I also don't know necessarily...
I haven't looked into the math.
But sure. But
you haven't done enough math to figure out if that's true or not.
I'm mathematically trying to prove that ghosts exist.
Yeah, I only got to multiplication tables.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess beyond that, if you get into, like, the upper realms of calculus...
How much math have you taken through, like, coursework?
I took calculus 1, 2, and 3, and then advanced calculus.
Okay.
When I went to college.
Okay.
And then, like, a bunch of physics.
Okay. My partner at the time was pursuing his master's degree in mathematics. So there were times that I would ask for help on my calculus homework, and they would struggle to help because they're like, it's just been so long since I've actually done calculations with numbers.
Oh, it's too easy for them.
Because you get into, when you get into higher level mathematics, it almost loops around to being philosophy, where you're like, what's this proof and how do we prove it, logically, and that does not interest me. I'm glad some people are interested in it, because I assume that it greatly assists in a lot of the science that we conduct today. But
I don't know what way, like, its practical application. I don't know how it helps. And I think like the master's level math, they get into such crazy stuff. My impression of it is that, like, it just kind of becomes about rules and, like, dogma at some point, where it's just like, what's important is that you're following this set of rules based on like the language of math as set out to us by whatever historical math figures and just like the standards of math. It's kind of just like a centuries old tradition. And at some point when you get into the upper levels of it, it might be something like Scientology.
It's interesting.
The way that Scientology has a bunch of levels, and
yeah.
like the more you get into it, it's like, yeah, there's something there. There's something to be said about it, but like, it just gets so like unrelatable to the regular person.
I definitely think, from my rudimentary understanding, a lot of higher mathematics, it can be very applicable when you get into things like probability and statistics and statistical analysis, and topology is another thing that could use a lot of there is a lot of practical applications. Namely, like, you have this proof that's like, oh, if I have these kinds of parameters on this kind of shape, I am unable to, I don't know, cut this thing in half. It cannot be split along this axis because of XYZ features. Okay, well now when you're designing something in the physical world, because of that, you now know that dividing this polygon is not possible in the way that you want it to be. And so it's mostly looking at all these indices of mathematical proofs and then pulling the very specific rules that they've already proven and already discovered and going, oh, that's why we can't do the thing that we want to do. It's mathematically impossible, and therefore it is impossible to do in the physical world. But I feel as though a lot of that is more along the lines of mathematics and chemistry in terms of applications. I know of the people that I have met with PhDs in mathematics, a lot of them work for things like the NSA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forget what NSA stands for.
National Security Agency.
Okay.
So they do a lot more consulting on things like nuclear projects, statistical algorithms. So it's like somebody's making a thing, and they're more on a consulting role of, say, you're developing this algorithm, and the mathematician is like, oh, no, that's not possible, the way that you're wanting to write this computer program. It cannot do X amount of permutations of this in a finite amount of time. Like, that's not worth pursuing. Here are the parameters that you would need in order to get this outcome, or the closest thing to this outcome. So it's, when you get to that level, I think it's more, from what I understand, mathematics is more like putting bumpers on what, and constraints, what people are trying to do in the real world, and so on. So because they go, oh, we've figured this out on a philosophical level. That's impossible. This is possible. Put your energy and resources here.
Math in the upper levels of it, it gets into the same thing as like quantum physics.
Depending on the math, yeah.
Yeah, like math. The upper levels of it will deal a lot with complex numbers, and so they'll get into the complex plane instead of the XY plane. They'll do a complex plane, which is regular numbers crossed with like irrational numbers, with the I numbers. What are those called? Complex numbers. Yeah. Regular numbers mixed with complex numbers, and they call them complex, but really they're just like numbers that don't exist.
Yes.
They're just like real, but complex numbers exist within a number one. Within a one.
Yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, I'm not a mathematician. I studied economics.
Yes, that's my. Oh, okay.
Which is like the philosophy of money. Because I didn't go to business school.
It's more practical than math, I think.
Well, it depends on the degree that you get. Because
it's more relatable and popular.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't have a BBA. I do not have a business degree in economics. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Economics because the courses that I took were at the business school, but I didn't have to take like the business school curriculum. So That's why I joke and I call it the philosophy of money, because that's kind of sometimes what I study. I had a class on like healthcare economics, and we're talking about a lot of different economic models that you can use and potential economic concerns of utilizing said models. And you're like, oh, but this is all hypothetical because we don't have $3 trillion to run this experiment of what it would be like to set up a healthcare system for the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
You can't run an experiment. It's all crunching the numbers in a hypothetical scenario.
A lot of education is hypothetical. It's like that. It's like the stuff that you have to work through. It's like this fictional scenario.
Yes. They have, in behavioral economics, which is a burgeoning field out of University of Chicago primarily, which I did not go to University of Chicago, but I did go to school in Chicago area, so there were a lot of overlap between like staff and conferences.
Mm-hmm.
They have the concept of like a human person as an actor in an economic model. And then you have the concept of what they call an econ. And an econ is an automaton that acts as a person would if they were to do everything rationally, which we all know people are not rational. So it's like, oh, how do I run this model? Well, the only way that I can run it to any degree is if I, instead of humans, basically treat all of the actors in this model as if they would only make rational decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I had a professor that described economics as a 2D map of a 3D world, and I think that's the best way to explain it. You're like, I have some information on how the world operates based on this map that I have, but it's not like being in the real world, and it's not holding all of the information that I would need to necessarily make a full decision. It's just a tool.
Yeah, I feel like, just thinking about it now, that education itself is like that. It's like a tool.
It's a 2D map of a 3D world.
Yeah, and we come up with stuff like that, education, where it's like, this is supposed to apply to the real world.
It's not a one-for-one.
But it's like a model, it's like a diorama. It's like, yeah, this is how the world works. Like, I feel like a movie is the same thing. And people be like, this person was so good in this movie. Like Jennifer Lawrence in The Hunger Games, like what a performance. But it's like, that's so, like, that doesn't happen in real life, and especially like getting filmed periodically during the course of a year and a half. Where it's like, where she's like acting, or like, that's a really good performance for this like fake thing where she's in front of a set. Where it's like, what a great performance, but it's nothing like real life, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, she's really good at acting, but in real life she might not, it might not translate, where it's like, and a lot of those celebrities, after the fact, kind of like after Hollywood isn't as popular anymore, they might not know how to act in real life, but we're like, you guys are the best actors.
I guess it begs a question.
Because you see some of them and they're like acting really weird, like Paul Rudd or Matthew McConaughey.
Do you find that the value of art, like the apex of art, is one that can get so close to realism that it's imitating it, and you're like, oh, that's the measure of art? Or is it that it's so far abstract that it's removed from reality, and you're like, oh, that's what art is? Do you think it's somewhere in the middle? Because I've had this discussion with a friend of mine who's a painter that does abstract art, and a lot of people will look at that and go, well, that's not art because it has no value, it's not imitating anything in the real world. One would argue that that's the purest form of art, versus somebody that can paint really, really photorealistically, which is incredibly skilled, but is it art if you're just recreating something that already exists? What do you think?
I think that the abstract is, the more abstract you get, you are still getting at something real. I almost want to say the more abstract it is, the more real it is. Because it's like, you might get an abstract painting that has a bunch of, it's just like, oh, a bunch of dots, or it looks like a bunch of stuff smeared randomly, like there's this over here. But that's maybe what the inside of like a cell looks like, or whatever. If you went like microscopic enough, that's like the way that a human body is connected, is like by all of these parts that look different from each other. If like you looked microscopic enough, and I think that that's the move of like paintings specifically. That's the way that they've moved, is maybe to get more like microscopic, because at some point, because popular paintings used to just be religious art, or like were for a really long time, and then they got off of that to make stuff that's like real life.
Yes.
And then they sort of went into like beyond real life, where they're like got abstract and just like started making dots or something.
Yes.
And
the whole surrealism movement, and then even impressionism, which was documenting real life, but in a way that was
impressionism.
Like dreary or evocative of like haziness or romanticism or something else. Even though you're like, oh, it's a picture of a train. Well, it's painted with such a filter and with such techniques that it diffuses it and it gives it another meaning.
Yeah, I think that maybe it's not. I think that it is maybe somewhere in the middle, like that maybe real is not when you get microscopic abstract.
Okay. There's no right or wrong answer. I just find this to be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's hard to say what real is. The way I'm thinking of it right now is like real is a medium. It's like mid. And there's a point in art where we're just like, somebody painted a train, like that's really real. But you can go really microscopic into some uncertain world, and that's maybe more futuristic.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're painting something that you're thinking about, or like a creative idea that somebody else hasn't done before. Like at some point you have to transcend just regular, like artistically, but I guess I'm ready to wrap up if you are.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right.